Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how to do the computation with decimals. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing decimals. Alright, so we'll start with addition and subtraction first. So adding and subtracting decimals. Obviously, we can use a calculator to do the question, but I still want to show you how to do it using pen and paper. All right, so if we want to add or subtract decimals, the most important thing is we need to make sure that the decimal points are lined up directly under one another. This is the most important thing. All right, so we need to ensure that the decimal points are lined up. All right, that's the most important part, because if you don't line up decimal points, you can't really do the calculation correctly. All right, so let's start with the first example here. So if we have 36.57, and I want to plus this number by 2.48, for example, that's the one. All right, so one of the way we do it is students sometimes they do question like this: 36.57, all right, plus 2.48. So that's pretty easy, all right, because you're just lining up the decimal points here. So as you can see here, these decimal points are lining up, and you can do the calculation this way. All right, now make sure that remember this. You never do something like that. So like 2.48, whereas you can see the decimal points are not lining up directly above each other. So therefore, this is not the correct way of doing this question here. All right, so that's not the right one. This is what we're going to do. All right, once you line up the decimal points, and then everything is going to be very easy to do the calculation. You just plus the number normally. So 7 plus 8 is 15. All right, you need to put a 1 up there. That's 10, so you need to put another 1 up there. All right, so that becomes 8. Oops. That becomes 8 and 38.05. So that's how you do it manually. All right. What about if we have a number that, say, for example, 6.278, and we're plussing a really small number like 0.00015 and 7. How do we do this question here? Well, again, same thing. You need to make sure that you line up with the decimal point. All right, so 6.278 and 0 point. All right, again, remember the decimal point must be lining up with each other. And then you've got 3 zeros at the end, and then 157. Now, what do we do if we have a question like this? Because you have sort of like an empty space here, what do we do that? All right, now with those empty space, all right, you can ignore it if you want, or you can just put adding zeros at the end. Because adding zeros at the end does not really change the number here. All right, but that gives you some idea what you're going to do with the calculation. So once you finish that, you just simply add 0 with the 7, 5 with 0, or 1. So as you can see, the number does not change. So if you don't want to add zeros at the end, all right, you try to ignore that. As long as you write down the correct answer, it doesn't really matter. All right, so it's not something that you have to do it, and that becomes the answer. All right, so the most important thing about this, all right, is make sure that the decimal points are lined up directly under one another. This is the most important one, all right? And then you have to ensure the digits are correctly aligned in a similar place values column, all right? So that's all you have to do. All right, so adding and subtracting is, all right, I believe it's pretty easy. Now, multiplying and dividing decimals by a power of 10 is also quite easy as well, all right? So we'll start with multiplying and dividing now. So multiplying and dividing decimals. We'll start with some special case, all right, by powers of 10. So like 100, like 1,000, like 10,000, or 100,000, or even 1 million. By a power of 10, what do we do here? All right, okay, so multiplying and dividing decimal by a power of 10. Now, when multiplying, the decimal point appears to move to the right by the same number of places as there are zeros in the multiplier. All right, so it's very similar to when you do the fraction simplification. So if you divide a fraction by 10, or you change a fraction to a decimal, if you divide a fraction by 10, then all you have to do is simply move the decimal places to the left or to the right, depends if it's for division or multiplication. All right, so it's really similar to what we have learned before. So, for example, if we have 12.57 and we need to times this number by 1,000, well, let's just times by 10 first, all right? Times by 10. And what do we do? Firstly, we have 1 0 here, which means we're going to move that decimal point one place to the right. So if multiplication moved the decimal place to the right. All right, so multiplying means we're moving the decimal place to the right. Move to the right. And by how many places, it depends on how many zeros you're timesing. All right, so whether you times by 100 or whether you times by 10, then the number of decimal places is different. So here is 12, or not 12.5, but 125.7. So you're moving the decimal place one place to the right. Okay, all right, so what about 12.467? And then we times this number by 10,000. What do we do here? Well, we count the number of zeros. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 zeros, right? Now we're moving the decimal point 4 places to the right. So that's the decimal point here. We're moving it 1, 2, 3, and we need to move one more. So that means you need to add a 0 at the end of the number. And that gives you, all right, this number here. Okay, so that becomes 670, and that's how you do it. So it's pretty easy. All you have to do is simply, count how many zeros you are timesing it, and you move the number of decimal places depends on the number of zeros. All right, now division on the other side is the same, it's just the opposite. All right, this time instead of moving the decimal point to the right, we're moving it to the left. So division or dividing. That just means move the decimal point, to the left. All right, the way to do the question is still the same. All right, so 586.92, and if we want to divide this number by 10, it's 1 0, so we're moving the decimal point one place to the left, and that gives us 58.692. Okay, all right. So that's pretty easy. Let's try one more. How about 0.05 divided by 100? Well, that's a decimal point. So we're going to move that two more places to the right. So it's 1 and 2. And that means we need to add 2 more zeros in front. 0.0 and 0.05. All right, so that becomes the answer. So again, this is still pretty easy. Okay, how about what happens if we not times or divide decimals by a power of 10? How do we do the calculation? If we just simply multiply or dividing decimals, right? All right, so we'll start with next one. All right, so what about if we are just multiplying? Oops, that's the wrong spelling, sorry. All right, just simply multiplying decimals. All right, so what do we do? Well, what you need to do is initially you're going to ignore the decimal points. All right, so never worry about the decimal point. Don't worry about it. Okay, so if we have an example of 2.4 multiplied by 1.72. Okay, so just forget about the decimal point. All right, don't worry about it. All you have to do is just simply use 172 times by 24. Forget about the decimal point. You can still write it if you want to, but you don't have to worry about it. All right, so once you finish that, you just do the normal multiplication, all right, normal algorithm to work out the multiplication here. Okay, so let's do the calculation here. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 4 times by 7 is 28. 1 times by 4 is 4, so that becomes 6, and 4, 14, and that's 3 here. All right, so we're going to plus them together. I hope you still remember how to do the calculation using, pen and paper. All right, so once you finish this result here, then what you do is you need to now, the decimal place is correctly positioned in the answer according to the following rules, right? So the number of decimal places in the answer must equal to the total number of decimal places in the question. So all we have to do here is we count. That's a 1 decimal place, right? Oops, that's 1 decimal place. And then if you count here, that's 2 decimal places. So therefore, the total decimal places is equal to 3, all right? So 3 decimal places. So then what you do is when you're looking for your answers, you're just going to move the decimal point 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. 3 places to the front, all right? Starting from the last digit or the unit digits. All right, so that becomes 4.128. That's all you have to do. So the key here is the number of decimal places in the answer must equal to the total number of decimal places in the question. All right, so I'm just going to write this one down. So the number of decimal places in the answer, all right, must equal to, all right, the total number of decimal places in the question. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so how about let's just do another one here. What about if we do 24.1 times by 2.2? Let's do a question like this, all right? So firstly, you can count, well, that's 1 decimal place, that's 1 decimal place. So the total number of decimal places is 2, okay? And we can just do the calculation by multiplying these 2 numbers together. As I said, you can put a dot, all right? You can put a decimal point, or you don't have to, okay? So if you want to put it, all right, just put it like this, all right? Do the normal multiplication. So that'll be 2, 8, and 4. Now it'll be 2, 8, and 4 again. Okay, so now we're going to plus the numbers together. That's 0, and 3, and 5. Okay, all right. So once you finish that, then you just count, all right? So we have 2 decimal places in total, right? Then that 2 decimal places means we are going to move to here. That's the decimal point. We're going to move that decimal point 2 places to the left, 1 and 2. So your final answer will be 50.02. That becomes the final answer. Okay, so that's how you are going to do the question. All right, that's how you're going to do it. All right, now if you don't have any question, we're going to move on to the next one, which is division or dividing decimals. All right, now dividing decimals, it's I would say it's a bit harder to do. All right, so what we need to do is we try to avoid dividing decimals by another decimals. All right, so instead we're going to change the divisor into a whole number. Okay, so this is what we do. So do not divide a decimal number by another decimal number. So say, for example, if we have 27.35 I want to divide this number by 0.02. Now, try not doing that, okay? Try to do a question where we're going to divide this number by a whole number instead of dividing by another decimal number. So what we need to do is, this is the divisor. We need to make sure that the divisor is always in a whole number, not a decimal number. All right, so how do we do it? Well, how do we change 0.02 to a whole number? All you have to do is simply times by 100. So all you have to do is times by 100 here and times by 100 there. You should be able to actually get to the point where that becomes 2735, so 2735.4, and we divide the number by 2. All right, then it's much easier, all right, to do either short or long division if you simply divide this number by 2 instead of divided by 0.02. So this is the rule, okay? So now we can do the calculation here. If I use a long division, that's what you need to do. So that's 3 here, that becomes 6. Oops, so 7 and 6. So now it's 13, so that'll be 6, 12, 7, and that'll be 14. Here's the dot, decimal point, so move the decimal point up there, and then it's 14, so the final answer is here. So 1367.7. So try to do the question or division questions using whole numbers. All right, do not divide this number by a decimal number, because otherwise it's just going to be a bit harder to do. Okay. All right, so I'd like to try another example. Question B. How about we have 541.31. I would like to divide this number by 0.4. Now remember, as I said, instead of divide by 0.4, I would like to change this one. So times by 10 or times by 10 there. So we can divide it by 4. And that becomes 5,413.1. All right, and then we can just do the calculation. All right, so let's have a look. So that becomes 4, that's 14, 3 here, that's 12, that becomes 21, that's 5, 20, so that becomes 13. What do I need? I need 3, that's 12, and then that becomes 1, 11, so I have a point here. Will be 2, and it can continue for 3, and you can continue to do this question here. All right, so that's how you do it. Just make sure that, remember, you always need to, all right, you can continue with this calculation. I'm pretty sure that you are going to get the, a number that's, it's sort of like divisible. So you can just continue to do it. I just don't have the space here, all right? If we continue to do that, all right, let's just write a 3 here. And it'll be 30, and it'll be 7, 28, that'll be 20, so that'll be 5. So the answer for that question will be 1,353.275. Now I know the process is really annoying, it's long, but remember these are in the future. Obviously you can use a calculator to do the calculation, but at this stage, just remember how to do the calculation using pen and paper. All right, so that's all I want to teach you this lesson. Hopefully you're going to treat this lesson just like a revision. All right. Yeah. Okay. I would like to see you guys next time. Thank you.